Good evening, afternoon, or morning from wherever you are. YPFE Tokyo is proud to host, in collaboration with the Global Policy, Diplomacy, and Sustainability GPODS program, its first event in a regional security-focused series on the Quad. My name is Byron Muhlenberg, Programs Officer for YPFE Tokyo. In my professional life, I serve as the Director of Business Operations of the 35th Contracting Squadron at Misawa Air Base in Japan. I am joined by Jay Makijani, also a Programs Officer at YPFE Tokyo and Assistant Director at the BIED Society. It has been an honor to work with the entire team, the YPFE Tokyo and GPOD staff, and tonight's speaker to develop this event. Before we get started, we would like to share a few administrative comments and guidelines. First, let me take this opportunity to share a few remarks about YPFE Tokyo, the organization hosting tonight's event. YPFE is a global organization that has been working for nearly 20 years to build the next generation of diverse and passionate leaders through career-building programs, engaging events, research, and publications. Tokyo is the newest YPFE branch and the first in Asia, reinforcing a commitment to truly global leadership. Providing a nexus of engagement for scholars, students, professionals, and thoughtful leaders across sectors, YPFE Tokyo connects people from around the world with those in and interested in Asia. We are a membership-based organization, and we accept new member applications on a rolling basis. We encourage you to visit our website to learn more about YPFE Tokyo. Also, please note that this event is being recorded and will be posted after the event. Through our events, we aim to promote an environment of trust where we can build understanding on complex issues through international, intergenerational, and inclusive dialogue. We kindly ask that participants in today's event respect differences in culture, experience, and perspective, regardless of the topics being discussed. Please note that this event will operate under Chatham House rules, which means that participants are free to use the information received, but neither the identity nor the affiliation of the speakers nor that of any other participant may be revealed. Additionally, as a disclaimer, remarks by the speaker are their own perspective and do not imply endorsement or represent official policy. Thank you for your kind attention and understanding on these points. Next, I would like to introduce our speaker for tonight's event. Dr. Satoru Nagao is a non-resident fellow at the Hudson Institute based in Tokyo, Japan. His primary research area is US-Japan-India security cooperation. He was awarded his PhD by Gakushuin University in 2011 for his thesis, India's Military Strategy, the first such research thesis on this topic in Japan. Dr. Nagao holds numerous research positions, including the director at the International Security Industry Council, senior research fellow at the Japan Forum for Strategic Studies, specifically appointed research fellow at the Japan Forum on International Relations, research fellow at the Institute for Future Engineering, Strategy, Defense Policy, and numerous other titles. Dr. Nagao was a visiting scholar at the Center for Strategic International Studies, CSIS, in Washington, D.C. He worked previously as a research fellow at the Tokyo Foundation and the Ocean Policy Research Foundation in Tokyo, as a postdoctoral fellow at the Research Institute for Oriental Cultures at Gakushuin University, and finally as a lecturer at Gakushuin University, Aoyama Gakuin University, and Komazawa University. He was a security analyst in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, MOFA, and a first lieutenant of the Japan Ground Self-Defense Forces. Dr. Nagao has authored numerous books and articles on security issues. He also contributes to the column Age of Japan-India Alliance at Nikkei Business, the journal of one of Japan's leading newspapers. So finally, with that, I pass the floor to you, Dr. Nagao.
Thank you very much. It is a great honor to make presentation in this event. And indeed, you can see the title. Thanks to you, you have already prepared a slide. But when we see the title, you cannot understand what I will make presentation. So I will explain one by one later. But simply said, we'll talk about Quad and under the new age what is the new age? US-China competition. That is new age. So that is the starting point. Currently, there are plenty of signs to escalate US-China competition. In this, you can see this year, it's China's 20th Party Congress. Japan's perception, at least I know, there are three things Japan learned from this China's Congress. All members selected by Xi is Xi's group, Xi Jinping's group. And the members Xi choose is relatively young. Young means, of course, active, but this main point is they cannot be the successor of the Xi Jinping because of age. So in China, age is powerful. So Xi Jinping will continue next 10 years. And certainly, Xi's speech did not hide any intention against the United States. In addition, currently another new circumstances exists is Russia's invasion against Ukraine. But if China plays its card right in the current crisis, there's a chance to expand its influence. Because of its aggression, Russia is under strict sanction from Western countries, so it is thereby rely heavily on China as its main customer of the energy resources. Or because Russia needs China's economic support, China might be in the more favorable position to get sophisticated military technology from Russia. In addition, after the war ends, what will happen? China might initiate the reconstruction project in Ukraine in order to expand its influence both in Russia and Ukraine, and as it has done in other countries through the Belt and Road Initiative. So, view from this crisis, there is a possibility China will expand their influences. But the US side is also moved. The most recent US national security strategy mentioned, the People's Republic of China is the only competitor with both the intent to reshape the international order and increasingly the economic, diplomatic, military, and technological power to do it. Therefore, as a Japanese experts expect that US-China competition will be escalated. Therefore, countries around China, such as other Quad members, India, Australia, and Japan, should continue our effort to prevent China's ambition in the Indo-Pacific. So, in this case, what do we want to know? For India and Australia and Japan, the most important question is, which side is likely to win? China or the United States? That is most important. I believe America is on the road to win the competition with China. There are three reasons. First, the US is still stronger than China. According to the Sweden think tank, SIPRI, SIPRI's database indicates that US military expenditure in 2020 was 3 times bigger than China's. And the quality of the military equipment is also a matter. All US submarines are nuclear powered, but the main Chinese submarine forces are consisted by the conventional powered. Even if China will catch up the GDP of the United States, their population will be more than 4 times bigger than the United States. So this means that GDP per capita will not so big. So could you please change the slide? This is related to the second. Thank you. Second, the US has many former allies. That is also the important part America is law to win. Gives the US need to win the competition, cooperation with allies or like-minded countries is the key because historically the number of the political partner has been a decisive factor in geopolitical struggle. For example, in the World War I, winner side 32 countries, loser side 4. World War II, 54 versus 8. US-Soviet Cold War, this is not Third World War, but the US-Soviet Cold War is a competition. 54 versus 26. So these facts indicate that number of supporters correlate to the likelihood of the winning the competition. So next slide, please. Yes, this is now. In the case of the current US-China competition, the US has many former allies, including NATO, the Central and South American countries, Israel, Australia, New Zealand, Thailand, Philippines, Taiwan, South Korea, and Japan. We count 52. But China's only former ally is North Korea, only 1. Third, the history of the US indicates that US will win the competition with China. During its 246 years history, the US has taken only 169 years to transform from a single colony of British Empire into the world's only superpower. And it has maintained this status for 77 years. During this time, all the rivals of the US, including Germany, Japan, and Soviet Union disappeared. Yes, including Japan also. And indeed, US has a long-term plan to win the competition. For example, before the World War II, US has an orange plan to defeat Japan and implemented it. But this orange plan is not the main point I want to point out. Indeed, there are the other colored plan. When the plan was declassified in 1974, world was surprised to learn that there were red plan, other colored plan, including red plan to defeat Britain and Canada. You can remember during the World War I, during the World War II, America supported Britain. Despite this between two, there is a plan to defeat Britain. Canada was very upset that when the plan was declassified in 1974, they set up the new museum in Ottawa. That was the reason. But anyway, the US has prepared any type of contingency. This is understandable because the world is changing always, and the US is flexible. But if the US has such kind of the plans, if the President Biden says that China is its most serious competitor, it is natural to conclude that the US has a plan to defeat China. Indeed, Republicans and Democrats share many similar goals toward China. For example, in the high-tech war, which banned products from the Huawei or ZTE, these are the Chinese company, started when the report was prepared in 2012. The report is the investigative report on the U.S. national security issue posed by the Chinese telecommunication company, Huawei and ZTE. 2012, that was Barack Obama was the president. So, high-tech war has started. High-tech war, the people remember the Trump administration. But indeed, this policy has started in the Obama administration. And the Biden administration has not changed the essence of the China policy that Trump administration developed. So, Obama, Trump, Biden, no difference. So therefore, Japanese take seriously the U.S. frustration with China and believe that Washington has a plan to confronting Beijing. So that's why I believe America is law to win the competition with China. Under such kind of situation, how should India, Australia, Japan react? India, Australia, Japan should stand with the United States because the winner side is beneficial. This is logical reason, of course. But how does the Quad work? That is a matter. Could you please change the slide? So, indeed, to find how does the Quad work, we need to find China's territorial expansion has three features. The pattern of the China's territorial expansion. That is important. Indeed, three they have. First one is a lack of respect to international law. In the East China Sea, China did not claim the Senkaku Island of Japan before 1971, but its attitude has since changed. The Senkaku Island are in strategic location to pressure Taiwan and have the potential oil reserve. In South China Sea, China has expanded its territorial claim, ignoring the verdict of the international court, and built artificial islands. China has started to deploy missiles and military planes on the island, despite insisting they have no military purposes. Indeed, this was the same pattern in China, the same pattern of China followed when it set up the military base in Djibouti in Africa. This was the first military base abroad for China. China continued to make incursions along the India-China border. Also, the Tibetan exile government has stated that this area belongs to India. China has ignored the current international law and expanded its territorial claim in all three areas. That's why I can say the lack of respect of the international law is one of the feature of the China's territorial expansion. Second feature is expansion of the territorial claims where there were power vacuum. For example, what happened in the South China Sea is a good example. Could you please change slide? China occupied half of the Paracel Island just after France withdrew in the 1950s. And in 1970s, 1 year after the US withdrew from South Vietnam, China occupied another half of the Paracel Island. In 1980s, China expanded its activities in the exploratory island and occupied the 6 features just after the Soviet Union decreased its military presence in Vietnam. In 1990s, China occupied the Mischief Reef, 3 years after the US troops withdrew from Philippines. So every time military balance has changed, there is a power vacuum China take it. So this activity indicates that China tend to expand its territorial reach. When military balances change, a power vacuum are detected. This is very important feature. And could you change the slide? We enter the third one. Attempt at economic dominance or other non-military methods to expand influence abroad as all common theme of China's exploited the full Indo-Pacific. China has used a forging infrastructure project known as the Belt and Road Initiative to expand its sphere of influence. Like this, could you change the slide, please? Yes, you can see the many projects or the many presence of China in around the Indian Ocean region, including the Indian Ocean side of the Southeast Asia. That is what happened. Countries with significant China's investment and debauch are hesitate to criticize China, even when it floats international rule. China has also been the use of vaccine diplomacy for COVID-19 to foster the goodwill among the recipient countries. So for China, non-military methods like infrastructure project or supply chain dependence or vaccine diplomacy serve expand its influence and power. So even on the developed countries like Japan, Australia, China use this method to economic control. Yes, Japan, Australia is not a small country, we believe at least, but indeed, that's true. For example, when Australia insists on the international investigation to identify the origin of the COVID-19, China delayed the process of the Australian imports, like wine, lobsters. Yeah, they are very delicious, but China delayed the process. So dependence on China's market is a powerful weapon for Beijing to expand its influence and ultimately expand its territories. That's a problem. So how does the Quad work? Original question. Could you change the slide, please? Thank you. Quad should do the opposite of what China wants. That is the answer. Firstly, respecting rule-based order. First, the Quad must continue to respect and insist upon the rule-based order grounded in current international law, not a new normal or something based on China, current international law. For example, the joint statement of the Quad summit always mentioned that free and open rule-based order will meet the challenge to the rule-based maritime order, including East and South China Sea, etc., etc. So why they mentioned about this? Because this statement try to remember the people how important or how respect rule-based order. Second, maintaining military balance. Quad countries need to fill the perceived power vacuum by maintaining military balance. So to do this, the Quad countries need to increase their defense budget. The problem is this is not easy because the money is needed. According to the SIPRI, the Sweden think tank, the name is the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, they have the military expenditure database, and this database is very good. From 2011 to 2020, China increased its military expenditure by 76%. 76%. During the same period, India increased 34%, Australia 33%, Japan, wow, 2.4%, and but United States decreased 10%. So China has tried to expand its territorial claim in the South China Sea, the East China Sea, the Taiwan, the South Pacific, the Indo-China border, or Indian Ocean, because it seems a power vacuum in this area. That's not good. Could you change the slide, please? So, reorganizing the security system itself is important. For a long time, hub and spoke system has maintained order in the Indo-Pacific. In this system, the hub is the United States, the center, hub, the left one, and many spokes are US allies, such as Japan, Australia, Taiwan, Philippines, Thailand, South Korea, in the Indo-Pacific. A feature of this system is it's heavily dependent on the United States. For example, even through the Japan and Australia, both US allies, there's no Japan-Australia alliance. So all information concentrate to the United States. And the US can deal with everything, but other countries do not share the information and they do not have the big picture. So, however, China's recent provocations indicate that the current system, this hub and spoke system, has not worked to dissuade China's expansion. So now the new network-based security system is emerging, the right one. US allies and partners cooperate with each other and share security burden with the United States and among themselves. This is led by US, of course. US persuades other allies to cooperate each other in this case. Many bilateral, trilateral, quadrilateral, or other multilateral cooperation arrangements, such as US, Japan, India, Australia, Japan, Australia, UK, US, India, Australia, Indonesia, India, Australia, France, or the US, India, Israel, and UAE. And I2U2, the people call this quadrilateral, are creating a network of the security cooperation. So the Quad is just one example of the country, but very important one, and cooperate with each other in sharing the regional security burden. So what can the Quad do to discourage China's territorial expansion? If the Quad country coordinate well, they can force China to defend multiple fronts at once. In such scenario, China would need to stimulate, okay, many things they need to face at the same time, I want to say. But in such scenario, China would need to stimulate, make the defense expenditures against the US and Japan on the Pacific side, as well as against India on the India-China border side. The sort of cooperation would provide a way to maintain a military balance, even if China's military expenditure were rising at a rapid pace. And in this case, what kind of capability is the key? Offensive capability, of course. For a long time, no country except the United States possessed enough capability to attack China in this region. However, if the US, Japan, India all possess long-range strike capabilities, their combined capability forces China to defend multiple fronts. Only defensive capability means that China can ignore the one side or two sides, no problem. But if they have the offensive capability, they cannot ignore it. Even if China they decide to expand its territories in the India-China border, it still need to expend a certain amount of its budget and military forces to defend itself against a potential attack from the US and Japan, if they have offensive capability. And vice versa, of course. And currently, Japan, India, Australia are all planning to possess 1,000 kilometer long-range strike capability, such as a cruise missile, the F-35 jet with a glide bomb, and indeed, Taiwan, Vietnam, Philippines, South Korea also increasing their strike arsenal with the surface-to-surface missiles. This move could be critical. So could you change the slide? This one is Japan's one. Of course, Japan, recent information also need to add to this list. Japan is planning to import the Tomahawk missile from the United States too. And next slide, please. This is Australia. Australia also try to possess long-range strike capability. And Australia also decide to modify their conventional submarine. Plan to modify their conventional submarine. It's a launch pad to be the launch pad of the Tomahawk missile. So, and next slide, please. This was a list of the missiles India tested in the autumn of the 2020. But 12 and 13 missile tests in the 45 days, a very different pace that time. But these missiles includes many offensive capability. That's why this list is also important. So this list indicates that not only Japan, Australia, but also the India try to possess long-range strike capability. And in case of India, the hypersonic missile they are developing, and their missile development is also good and achieved much. So, next slide, please. Okay, it is too early. Okay. Anyway, could you keep this slide? Thank you very much. Third one is integrated military and non-military policy as a one overall strategy was the theme. So this means that we are talking about military. So now the non-military we need to talk. the Quad need to integrate, so military and non-military. This will be the very important part of any counter-China strategy because China's threat is threat of money. China can change the status quo by force when its military power is stronger than others, and so maintaining military balance is important when we are already talked. However, because of its strong economy and ample budget, China's military modernization has outpaced other countries. That's a problem. But that is a problem of money. So that is why non-military efforts are needed to reduce China's economic advantage. In the case of foreign infrastructure project, the situation is same. Because of its favorable economic situation, China can invest heavily this project, and create a huge debt and obligations for the recipient countries. These countries then tend to follow China's lead in international organizations such as the WTO or others, Human Rights Commission of the United Nations recently, so they cannot criticize Uyghur-related issue. Why what happened? Why what kind of thing? Such kind of things has happened? Because China's economic power. So therefore, reducing China's ample budget and its influences is important priority. But China's top 3 level trading partner for the U.S. Partner for the U.S., Japan, Australia, and India, all of the Quad countries. Top 3 level trading partner China. So that's why that is a very serious issue. So if these countries depend too heavily on trade with China, their economy will be hostage to it. So Quad country cannot take a strong stance against China and rely heavily on trade with its same time. So therefore, Quad countries need to integrate the economic effort and reduce their reliance on China, decoupling, risk diversifying of the supply chain and the markets are necessary. So that's why this figure is important. In case of Japan, indeed, Japan has already begun to do so, I believe. Because Japan has relocated its factories from China to Southeast Asia or South Asia, number of Japanese citizens living in China has decreased from 150,000 in 2012 to the 111,000 in 2020. At the same time, the number of the Japanese live in the United States has increased from 410,000 to 426,000 in 2020. So that has really happened. And in addition, Japan earmarked 2.2 billion of its 2020 economic stimulus package to help the local manufacturers shift production out of China. And this is the starting time and continues until now. Next slide, please. We need to talk about infrastructure issue. In case of infrastructure issue, for example, when China proposed, when China proposed the Sonadia port project in Bangladesh, Japan suggests its own port project in the nearby Mata Valley. So Bangladesh was surprised but enjoyed the situation to eventually accept Japan's offer, Mata Valley port project, instead of the Sonadia port project of China. So advantage of the China's infrastructure project, budget. Yes, budget is big, and speed, because the Chinese worker come to and make infrastructure very fast paced. However, China's project have many weak points too. In some projects, the plan too rough and did not achieve the goal. China's project have been implemented by Chinese worker means that the Chinese worker, they use the Chinese worker, so that's why the Chinese project has not been the beneficial for locals. Japan's free and open Indo-Pacific vision makes these points and seeks to persuade the recipient to accept Japan's project instead of China's. That's what happened in the Sonadia and Matabari. You can see the where is this project, Sonadia and Matabari. So I should conclude this presentation. China's aggressive territorial expansion spurs the U.S. to take tough stance toward it. And now Quad countries must show how strong they are. In this case, Japan, India, and Australia must cooperate more deeply with the United States and strengthen their partnership. Because China's expansion follows a predictable pattern, insisting on the respect for the rule-based order, or maintaining the military balance, or integrating military and non-military policies into the overall strategy, are essential for the Quad to achieve this goal. So now is the time for Quad to do so. That is my presentation. Thank you very much. Last slide, please. Yeah, that's one. Thank you. I need to prepare the question from now. This means I need to prepare the memo.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nagao. That was a great presentation, a great insight you provided to us on the Quad, especially from Japan's perspective, and then a lot of the member countries of the Quad. I really thought it was good when you talked about the characteristics of the Chinese posture in the Indo-Pacific, specifically with the lack of respect for international law, expansion of territorial claims into power vacuums, and attempts at economic dominance and other military methods to expand influence. I think the third piece is particularly important. I really liked that the idea of integrating military and non-military policy from a Quad standpoint too, and really showing that how we can interconnect, the allies, member countries can interconnect to really ensure that we still have a free and open Indo-Pacific and maintain a rules-based order. And I think that goes a long way when we're looking at things we see in China, such as the military-civil fusion, something that we just can't really combat as well in some of the Quad countries. So I think that something like that, building up the interconnectedness and that cooperation and that coordination is key. And I'm going to pass it to Jay so he can provide some of his insights too.
Hello, am I audible? Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Naga, for your very insightful remarks here. And even I feel the Quad is really important forum to discuss, at least in the Asian Pacific region. And I think you touched upon almost most important points when it comes to raising military budget, the kind of exchange programs, military deals, etc. taking place. And I think those are very important points which really need to be discussed further at the Quad forum. I think now I'll start with the Q&A session. So we have our first question for Dr. Nagao from Linha. I'll read that for you, Dr. Nagao. What do you think about Japan's engagement in the South China Sea through the Quad? From the Vietnamese perspective, I would say I'm not very optimistic about the options because the Quad is not viewed as favorable as the ASEAN approach or the bilateral strategic partnership with Southeast Asia. Especially regarding the South China Sea dispute, there is indeed a lot of skepticism in Southeast Asia about the Quad. Therefore, I would like to hear your opinion about the possibility of Japan's engagement in the South China Sea through the lens of Quad so that it can promote its national interest in the South China Sea, which Japan is not doing so.
Should I answer one by one?
Yeah, sure, please.
Okay.
You can do.
Yes, this is a good question. Indeed, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, he was assassinated this year, published an article about Asia's democratic security diamond, which means a Quad, in 2012. He mentioned about the situation in the South China Sea. Indeed, that time Japan is worrying the China's deployment nuclear ballistic missile in the South China Sea. Logic is like that. That time, China has already started to build an artificial island. And so, at least planned to. And if China makes a triangle by using the artificial island and excludes all the fogging ships or the planes that can detect submarines, there is a secret area for the Chinese submarine to hide. So, in this case, if China brings a submarine which can launch nuclear missile from South China Sea to the United States, they can hide. And no country want to take the risk of the nuclear war. That is why they cannot attack the artificial island. So that's why Japan is worrying the China's expansion in the South China Sea. But because of this concern, the United States and other countries succeeded to prevent China's construction in the Scarborough Shoal. Why this is important? Because when we check the triangle, China can build military base in the Paracel Island. It's just side of the China's island of the Hainan. It's one edge of the triangle. And the southern edge of the triangle is Spratly Island. So one line. So if they try to create a triangle, one more edge is needed. That place is Scarborough Shoal. If the U.S. side prevent China to construct the artificial island in the Scarborough Shoal, this is not a triangle, just one line of the islands. So there is no place China can hide the submarine. Any foreign ship can enter the South China Sea any places because just a line. There is no area. So that's why that time the president was Obama, and President Obama was not good reputation to show the strong stance towards the other enemy. But that time, Obama was strong. When the China's cargo ship to build artificial island coming from China, United States decided to send a fighter bomber A-10 and fly just over of this cargo ship and warn the cargo ship. If you approach the Scarborough Shoal, they will sink. That's why this ship returned to China. And they haven't committed start to construct artificial island in Scarborough Shoal after that. So that's why triangle hasn't achieved yet. And U.S. side continue to enter the 12 mile from the artificial island repeatedly as a free and name is free and open. No. I forgot the exact name of the military operation. Sorry, but they enter. The U.S. sent destroyers repeatedly the 12 mile from the artificial island, and this ship can detect submarine. That's why this sending this ship regularly is a very important warning for China. You cannot hide the submarine as a launch pad of the nuclear ballistic missile. So China hasn't achieved to create a very big fortress in the South China Sea. So, from Vietnam, about the territorial issue, Quad hasn't stopped China's expansion. Maybe question, I think. But that's not true. Indeed, we have succeeded to stop it. So now China cannot, still China's military fortress hasn't created in the South China Sea completed in South China Sea. Any foreign military ship or military plane can enter the South China Sea, and China cannot hide the submarines as a sacred area. So still, the South China Sea is free and open. But that's my answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Nagao. That was really very insightful answer. The next question is from Mr. Christopher. I'll read that. If America and their allies go to war with China, likely over Taiwan, economic sanctions will be vast from both China and America and allies. China will be hit very hard monetarily as they are net exporter of goods. However, US and allies will be hit very hard with regard to no manufacturing capabilities, particularly around advanced semiconductors in Taiwan. But basically all components for vehicles, electronics, weapons are made in China. Manufacturing capability will not be built fast enough by the West. So who, China or US allies will win war of?
Of course, both US and China do not want to start war in Taiwan. But at the same time, if view from China, Taiwan is part of their territory and they do not want to give this territory to the other. That's why the US and China try to choose middle between two. US side do not allow Taiwan to be the independent country, but actual independence is possible. And the China side want to take Taiwan as their territory, but their capability do not allow them to do it. That's policy they have implemented. And during the Cold War, two countries need to cooperate because there is a rivalry between the Soviet Union and China in the communist side. That's why United States take China from this communist side as one kind of ally against Soviet Union. That time, the US and China agree about Taiwan. This is a quite ambiguity policy, but their agreement clearly, not clearly, ambiguity, not easy to understand the sentence is. Blue from the China side, US accept one China policy, which means that Taiwan is part of their territory. But US side, when we read, US respect this one China policy as China's policy, not US policy. That is agreement between two, because they need to cooperate against Soviet Union. That's why the one kind of ambiguous agreement they prepared. The same sentence, but two sides can interpret this sentence as their favor. But that is the situation. So after that, this sentence continued to work. China said, US decide to respect this one China policy. US said. So that's why not supporting the Taiwan's independence. China criticized the United States. But China's US side say, we respect one China policy as your policy, not our policy. That's the situation. So problem is not just now. Problem is future. China continue to grow and China continue to improve their military capability. There is a possibility, the situation that China can create, China can win in this region militarily. If such kind of situation China can create, will China invade Taiwan? That is a question. And the US side is worried. So, because view from the China's expansion, China can ignore the rule-based order. This means that even if there is agreement, China can ignore it if they have enough military power. That's why currently US side try to integrate our effort, not only the US, but also Japan, Taiwan, and improve our military capability. This year, Japan will increase the defense budget not the 2.4% in the last decade. More faster, nearly double Japan will rise defense budget. And if the Quad country cooperate each other, of course, China need to share some certain military expenditure against India, complete other side of Taiwan. That is helpful. And also, why Australia gives their submarines missile capability? Because Australia dispatches submarine just side of Taiwan, they can fire the missile against the Chinese continent. For example, if China try to invade Taiwan, in this case, if the US submarine, Japan submarine, Australia submarine can fire the cruise missile, China need to prepare to defend their long coastal lines. In this case, China cannot concentrate to invade Taiwan. So currently, why do they raise the defense budget? Japan, Australia, India, and why they try to possess strike capability? Because China is improving their military capabilities. We need to prevent the China's overconfidence to invade Taiwan. So that is current situation. So military capability is very important to deter such kind of invasion against Taiwan. And we have realized the risk. That's why we have already committed to catch up the situation. Thank you.
That was a very fascinating answer, Dr. Nagawa. And even I feel that capacity building is one of the very crucial elements when it comes to military support, etc., etc. I think the next question is from Byron. Byron, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, one question for you, Dr. Nagawa. So part of your thoughts on the Quad focused on maintaining a military balance and increasing offensive capabilities. So traditionally, Japan has maintained a defense budget well below 2% of GDP and has refrained from purchasing such long-range military capabilities. So such defense spending proposed to be approved, and the Quad members significantly increase defense cooperation. What can Japan do to assuage regional concerns about its defense posture, or is that even a relevant point at this time?
That's maybe I can talk about the potential, because for a long time, Japan's defense policy and defense capability based on defensive defense. But now, suddenly we need to talk about offensive capability. But for example, when we launch a missile, what kind of information or what kind of capability we need to prepare? Firstly, we need to know where is the target. In the China's coastline, we will attack. But where is the target? Maybe fire and hit land, no one live. Is this effective military strategy? That's not true. So that's why we need a system to identify target first. And of course, the long-range missiles needed. And the long-range missile should be survived if China attack it. So this kind of things, all of the things are new area for Japan's defensive defense policy. That's why Japan tried to possess the strike capability just now, but the capability itself demands a long time to possess. Not just a missile. So in this case, how to work will be matter. If the United States give Japan enough information and enough lead to attack it, of course, US has the capability to detect where is the target and hit or not, and information to how to control the missiles to settle everything indeed. That's why even if Japan will possess a strike capability or Australia will possess a strike capability, this capability is US controlled capability. So what kind of thing Japan can do? Japan will fulfill the gap US need to feel. That is what Japan can do. So, for example, the Tomahawk missile Japan is planning to possess, but the Tomahawk missile controlled by GPS satellite. GPS satellite is US system. So that's why without these supports, Japan cannot control the Tomahawk missile ourselves. Well, that is what I want to say. So the US side, US, Japan, Australia, these three countries coordinate very well. And in this case, still, US is leading country, even if Japan and Australia share the burden. And India is a newcomer, so a little different system they use. And indeed, Russia's connection is needed in some case. But at the same time, every year, India is also improving the coordination with the United States, cooperation with the United States, sharing some data information, etc., etc. So that's why in the Quad cooperation, India is a newcomer, but start to integrate some part of it. That is the current situation. And Japan's capability is completely part of the US side, I think.
Certainly, Dr. Nagao. I think the coordination is one of the crucial elements when it comes to Quad. I think the next question is from Sena. She's okay. So she says many conservatives and nationalists such as Shinzo Abe have discussed the possibility of people here. Byron, would you like to take ahead for the closing remarks, sir?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Dr. Nagao, that was great. Love the answers to all your questions. And I think those will generate a lot of future discussions and a lot of thought with the participants here today. So first, I'd like to extend a thank you on behalf of the YPFP Tokyo and GPOD staff to you, our speaker, Dr. Nagao. I'm sure everyone gained valuable insight from the experiences of this distinguished professional. Now, as we bring tonight's event to a close, I would like to invite all of you to remain in touch with us and consider joining us as a YPFP member. You can refer to our website and join anytime and learn more about us. We're definitely interested in hearing from those interested in foreign policy and international exchange, no matter where in the world you are. Please feel free to reach out and note if you have any interest in leadership or in your particular city or country. We're always looking for more leaders globally to help support the organization. Now, I hope you all enjoyed today's event. We look forward to seeing you again at our future YPFP events, including future events in our security-focused Quad series as we look at other countries such as Australia, India, and the United States. Thank you for being a part of our community. Have a great night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Nagao. Thank you all the participants here.